Many people who follow the royal family know that Queen Camilla became queen after King Charles III took the throne, while Prince William and Princess Catherine remain among the most trusted and respected members of the monarchy. But now, shocking claims are spreading online that William and Catherine have confirmed Camilla has been stripped of her royal title. So, is there any truth behind these reports? Why the sudden decision? And what could this mean for the future of the royal family if such a dramatic decision were ever made? But what do you think about this latest royal story? Do you believe these claims are true? Or do you think they are simply another rumor making headlines? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. And for more updates on the royal family, make sure you subscribe. Camilla's succession change. Now this is where things get interesting. For years, Camilla believed one thing without ever saying it out loud. As long as King Charles stood by her side, no one could take away the position she had spent so many years building. William might disagree with her. Catherine might keep her distance. Palace advisors might raise concerns. But Charles was the king, and Camilla believed his support would always protect her. Then, an important meeting began. It took place behind closed doors inside Buckingham Palace, far from cameras, palace staff, and the carefully chosen words usually used to hide family disagreements. William arrived first, followed by Catherine. Charles and Camilla were already sitting at the table. In the middle was a sealed file about the royal succession. It contained a decision that had already gone beyond debate. A senior advisor opened the file and read the first section. It said Camilla would remain queen for the rest of Charles's reign, but when his reign ended, her royal title, authority within the household, ceremonial status and influence would end as well. There would be no automatic role after Charles, no special protection, and no separate position of power during William's future reign. That was when William spoke, changing the mood in the room. He did not raise his voice or make personal attacks. Instead, he calmly said the monarchy could not move into its next chapter while leaving questions about loyalty, privilege, and control unanswered. There could only be one monarch, one royal household, and one clear chain of authority. Camilla's future role, he explained, could not be placed above that principle. Catherine stayed quiet, but her silence spoke loudly. Camilla expected William to defend his future as king, but Catherine's presence showed that they both supported the same decision. She was not there simply to observe. She was there to show her agreement. The second page of the file was then opened. It listed several requests linked to Camilla's household. These included keeping her staff, having influence over senior royal appointments, permanent access to royal homes, continued security after Charles's reign, and special treatment for members of her family. Each request seemed reasonable by itself, but together they appeared to create a royal household that could continue even after Charles was gone. Charles looked toward William, perhaps expecting him to hesitate. He did not. At that moment, Catherine leaned forward and made a point Camilla had not expected. She said that a royal title should always represent service to the crown. It should never become personal property or be used to give lasting advantages to relatives who have no official royal responsibilities. Camilla looked back at the document. She had faced years of public criticism, lived under the shadow of Princess Diana's memory, and waited a long time for the palace to fully accept her place. Now, William and Catherine were making it clear that her position had never been guaranteed forever. It would end when Charles's reign ended. But the most important page was still to come. It stated that the decision had already been added to the royal succession plan and could not be quietly changed later. Camilla turned to Charles, hoping for reassurance. He avoided her gaze. At the bottom of the page was an authorization mark she recognized immediately. It did not belong to William. It did not belong to Catherine. According to the document, the decision affecting her future title had started with Charles himself. Yet even that was not the biggest surprise. The greatest concern, it seemed, was hidden in the remaining pages that William had not yet allowed Camilla to read. But were there earlier plans to make such a change? How long has it been? Let's find out. Royal household transition. For months, a palace team had been reviewing how the royal household would work after King Charles' reign came to an end. At first, it was seen as a normal planning process. They looked at staff numbers, security, residences, ceremonial duties, and other routine matters that were not expected to cause any family disagreements. Then, new requests started appearing. One suggested that several members of Camilla's household should keep their positions even after Prince William became king. Another asked that people connected to Camilla should continue having a say in appointments linked to charities, royal homes, and ceremonial offices. A third requested that certain travel, security, and accommodation benefits should continue for people close to Camilla, even if they no longer had official royal duties. On their own, the requests did not seem unusual, but when they were looked at together, they appeared to form a larger plan. William had carefully read every document before the meeting. He believed the household was preparing not just to adjust to a new reign, but to keep much of its influence after Charles was gone. Staff would stay, access would stay, and influence would stay. Even if the title itself no longer carried the same official role, the system around it would still be in place. That was something William was not willing to accept. Charles dismissed the concerns, saying they were simply administrative issues. He argued that Camilla had stood beside him for years, represented the crown, supported charities, and faced heavy public criticism. In his view, keeping some continuity was not about giving special treatment. It was about protecting loyal staff from losing their jobs as soon as William became king. But William was not convinced. He questioned why continuity meant keeping influence over appointments. He asked why it required ongoing access to certain royal residences, why the privileges of the reigning queen should continue after the reign had ended, and why some of the requests involved members of Camilla's family instead of working royals with official responsibilities. The atmosphere in the room became tense. Camilla responded that her family had never chosen to become part of the royal family. Through her marriage, they had faced years of media attention, criticism, and invasion of privacy. She said the support mentioned in the documents was simply meant to protect them from problems they had never asked for. Catherine listened quietly before asking a single question. What public service would those privileges represent? No one answered. That silence highlighted the biggest weakness in the argument. Royal privileges could be defended when they helped people carry out official duties. They became much harder to justify when they seemed to benefit family ties, personal loyalty, or private comfort. Catherine's concern was not just about royal rules. She was also thinking about how the public would react. Every residence, staff position, security arrangement, and appointment would eventually face the same question outside the palace. Charles shifted in his chair. He knew better than most how quickly public opinion could turn. Over the years, he had seen small financial matters grow into national controversies. He understood that one privilege that could not be properly explained might overshadow months of public service. Camilla refused to back down. She said William and Catherine were acting as if she were trying to create a separate royal court. So, did William confront her? And why? Let's find out. Prince William confronts Camilla. Camilla's expression changed for a moment. She said the wording had been written by palace officials. She had not written it herself and had not approved every sentence. She explained that her office handled a huge amount of paperwork every day, and not every document was brought to her for approval. That answer raised another problem. If Camilla had not approved the requests, then someone in her office had been making plans without her permission. But if she had approved them, then she had come into the meeting already knowing what William had uncovered. Either possibility was serious. A senior advisor then referred to earlier warnings. Camilla's office had been told several times that royal titles, staff, household arrangements, and special privileges would not automatically continue after the reign of the current monarch ended. The message had been clear, but it had not been followed. Even after those warnings, the requests kept coming. One was sent 3 weeks after the first warning. Another came after a second meeting with constitutional advisors. The final request was submitted only a few days before William and Catherine were called to review the succession documents. At that point, it could no longer be called a misunderstanding. Charles looked at Camilla, waiting for an explanation, but she remained silent. William stayed calm. Catherine then picked up a thinner folder from beneath the main file. It had a date that Camilla recognized immediately. She had believed that meeting had been completely private. She had also believed that no written record of it existed. Catherine opened the folder and slid the first page across the table. It was not a letter. It was a transcript of a private conversation that had taken place months earlier between Camilla's household and palace advisors. One part stood out. A palace official had clearly stated that the powers connected to the reigning queen could not automatically continue into the next reign. The reply from Camilla's side was short and direct. Find another route. Camilla read the sentence twice before looking at Catherine. For the first time that evening, the discussion became deeply personal. Camilla asked whether Catherine truly understood what she was supporting. Her words reflected years of pain and frustration. Catherine had joined the royal family with strong public support, William's protection, and the expectation that she would one day help lead the monarchy. Camilla's experience had been very different. She had faced years of criticism and had long believed she would never be accepted as Charles's partner. She had waited many years before finally receiving her royal title. Now, in her view, Catherine was helping bring that chapter to an end. Catherine quietly closed the folder and rested both hands on the table. She answered calmly. She said she understood why the title meant so much to Camilla after everything she had been through. But those personal sacrifices could not decide how the title should work once its constitutional purpose had ended. Her answer changed the mood in the room. Camilla was speaking about protecting what she had spent years building. Catherine was speaking about the limits of royal authority. Catherine said she respected the difficult years Camilla had endured. She recognized that Charles had chosen her, stood by her, and given her an important place during his reign. None of those things were being taken away. But she also said that a new reign could not be controlled by decisions or promises made during the previous one. A royal title was not a reward for past hardships. It was a position of service. And when that service ended, the authority connected to it should end as well. What decision did William take, and what pushed him to such a situation? Let's take a closer look. Prince William's shocking decision. Camilla turned to Charles and asked if he was really willing to let William and Catherine reduce everything she had done by his side to nothing more than an official rule. Charles looked tired. He calmly said that no one was trying to ignore her years of service. The discussion was only about what would happen after his reign ended. That answer hurt Camilla even more than if he had argued with her. Charles had already accepted the difference between her past role and her future position. Camilla pushed the document back across the table. She insisted she had never seen the warnings. She said she had never given anyone permission to find a way around William's future authority. She explained that her office handled a huge number of documents every day. Some were only early drafts, and many never reached her desk. The senior advisor then opened another record. It showed that the warning had been sent directly to Camilla's private secretary. A receipt confirmed that it had been opened. The next morning, a private meeting was added to Camilla's schedule. There was no subject listed, and no official notes were taken. But later that same day, the words, "Continuation beyond the present sovereign," appeared in a revised request. Someone had clearly taken action. The only question was who. Camilla said her private secretary must have misunderstood the situation. William then asked if that misunderstanding also explained the requests about royal homes, staff, and family access. Camilla replied that palace officials often prepared many different options before deciding on one. Catherine listened quietly before asking why every proposal increased Camilla's future role instead of reducing it. Once again, no answer came. Charles stepped in and suggested pausing the process while Camilla's office carried out its own investigation. He believed this would help separate her personal intentions from the actions of her staff. William shook his head. He said it was too late for an internal review. Camilla's household had already received warnings, but continued sending in the same requests. The succession team believed that delaying the decision would only create bigger problems for the next reign. Charles finally asked the question he had been avoiding. "Is this a punishment?" William answered without hesitation. "No, it's protection." He explained that it was not about protecting the monarchy from Camilla herself. It was about protecting it from confusion. There could not be competing orders, staff claiming old powers, family members expecting special treatment, or a new royal court spending its first months arguing over promises made during the previous reign. Catherine reopened the appendix and turned to the last page. Beneath the earlier warnings was the legal reason for the decision. She pointed out that this rule had not been written by William or created by her. It came from a reform that had been approved months earlier. Its purpose was to make sure that royal titles, households, official homes, and public funding stayed connected to active royal duties. Charles himself had signed the reform. He leaned forward as the room fell silent. Catherine placed her finger under his signature and explained what no one had yet said. William was not using a new rule against Camilla. He was simply following a rule that Charles had personally approved. If Charles now tried to make an exception for his wife, he would have to admit that the reform applied to everyone except the woman sitting beside him. Camilla slowly turned to face the king. This time Charles could not avoid her eyes. He stared at his own signature as if he barely recognized it. When the reform was first introduced, it had seemed simple. Its goal was to make the monarchy smaller, remove unnecessary roles, connect public funding to active service, and stop royal households from becoming larger than needed. So, who brought these reforms? Did it achieve its purpose? Let's take a closer look. Prince William and Catherine's royal reform. Support does not mean much if people stay quiet, especially when those protecting the future of the monarchy are left to carry all the responsibility alone. Camilla listened to their reasons, but refused to accept them. She said the palace was hiding a personal choice behind official constitutional language. She argued that no rule had forced William to act at that moment. There was no emergency that required Catherine to stand beside him. In her view, they had chosen that timing because they wanted the issue settled before Charles had the chance to protect her. William stayed silent for a moment before opening another part of the file. The proposed reform had already been added to the official succession planning records. Copies had been sent to the legal office, the private secretaries, and the advisors preparing for the next reign. It was no longer just a private agreement between Charles and his staff. It had become part of the official process that would guide the transfer of power. That changed the situation completely. Charles still had the authority to change the policy while he was king, but any change made only to protect Camilla's position would be obvious to everyone. It could not be hidden or described as a normal update. The official documents were already on record. Just then, the door opened, and Princess Anne walked into the room without any formal announcement. She had been invited to review the reform because of her long experience with royal households and her years of service under 2 different monarchs. Before entering, she already knew the main arguments and understood exactly where the weak point was. Anne looked at Charles before looking at Camilla. She reminded him that a reform only has real value if the person who introduces it is also willing to follow its limits. She said a monarch could not ask the family to accept discipline, reduce royal households, and question long-standing traditions, only to ignore those same rules when they affected his own wife. Charles replied that Camilla was not just another member of the royal family. Anne agreed, but said that was exactly why the rules should be even clearer, not weaker. Camilla accused Anne of taking William and Catherine's side against her. Anne calmly rejected that claim. She explained that personal feelings were not the issue. The real issue was that one royal office belonged to the current reign, while another would belong to the next one. Mixing those two would leave staff, advisors, and family members unsure about whose authority they should follow. She said the danger was not dramatic, but administrative, and that made it even more serious. A palace does not need a public argument to become disorganized. It only takes one disputed order, one appointment challenged by another office, or one family member promised access that the next monarch refuses to accept. It only takes one former royal household insisting that an old arrangement is still valid. William understood that risk, and Catherine did as well. However, she pointed to the section of the document that dealt with royal order of precedence. If Camilla kept the same practical status as queen after Charles's reign, where would that leave the next queen? Who would be given the first speaking role at official events? Which royal household would be in charge of the staff? Which office would welcome foreign guests? Let's take a closer look. The meeting that changed. Camilla's future forever. Camilla said Catherine was only trying to protect her own future place as queen. Catherine did not deny it. She calmly replied that the next reign needed clear rules, not competition. Making sure everything was clear was part of her duty, just as supporting King Charles had been part of Camilla's. The legal advisor then gave the final decision that no one could change with kind words. The plan was legally valid. The official succession records were complete. The policy removing Camilla's automatic authority after Charles's reign had already been approved. Charles could object. He could ask for another review or even try to replace the plan. But he could not erase the existing record or remove the reasons why it had been created. Camilla pushed the folder away. She demanded that Charles cancel the decision before anyone outside the room found out. William finally looked directly at her. He said Charles could protest and delay the process, but he no longer had the power to quietly make the decision disappear. It had already become part of the plans for the future. Camilla stopped looking at Charles and turned to William. For the first time that evening, there were no advisors, papers, or legal terms between them. The question became simple and personal. Was he really willing to remove her from her future position? William answered without showing any emotion. He said the decision was not about his personal feelings toward Camilla. It was about making sure the next reign remained stable. The succession plan had already been approved. The decision had been made. His duty was to carry it out, not pretend it did not exist. Camilla then looked at Catherine, who confirmed William's words without hesitation. She said the next royal court could not begin with two people holding unclear authority. Camilla would always be treated with respect and honored for standing beside Charles. But the authority that came with being queen would end when Charles's reign ended. That was the moment no one in the room could take back. Charles stood up and walked toward the window. For years, he had defended Camilla from public criticism, private opposition, and the lasting memories of the past. Now the biggest challenge to her future was no longer coming from outside Buckingham Palace. It was coming from the future king himself. Charles suggested a compromise. Camilla could still use a ceremonial royal title after his reign. Her staff would be smaller but not completely removed. She could keep a reduced household. She would lose official authority but still be publicly recognized with the dignity of a queen. For a brief moment, the room felt calmer. Then William rejected the idea. He explained that even ceremonial titles could carry real influence. Staff followed important titles. Officials showed respect based on rank. Family members expected special access because of them. A title that seemed only symbolic could quickly become an unofficial position of power if people acted as though nothing had changed. Catherine offered a more limited solution. Camilla would receive private respect, proper security, and a stable place to live. But none of those things would give her authority over the next royal household. She would not control appointments, give orders to senior staff, or claim any constitutional rights. Camilla heard only one message beneath all those words. She believed they were reducing her role. She had spent many years facing criticism before finally becoming queen. However, the press secretary then entered with a draft public statement. It did not mention removing Camilla's authority. It did not mention William, Catherine, or the disagreement. Instead, it described the decision as a simple constitutional clarification about how royal households would be organized in the next reign. So, what's this draft, and what does it contain? Let's find out. The hidden succession file. Then came the question about signing the papers. Charles asked where he needed to sign. The legal advisor calmly explained that no more signatures were needed. Months earlier, Charles had already permitted the plan to move forward. The Palace Council had finished reviewing everything, and the succession file had already been officially recorded. William and Catherine were not asking for approval. They were simply confirming that the existing rules would now be followed. Camilla froze. In that moment, everything she believed about the meeting changed. She had thought Charles could still protect her with a single decision. She believed the king was the last person standing between her and the future William wanted to create. But that power was already gone. Maybe Charles had not realized it. Maybe he had not meant for it to happen. Either way, the result was the same. The final page was placed in front of Camilla. Near the bottom were Charles's initials beside the original approval for the reforms. She recognized his handwriting immediately. Her eyes slowly lifted from the page to Charles, who stood quietly near the window. Under the soft light, he looked less like a powerful king and more like a husband facing a painful truth. Camilla gently touched his initials with one finger. The room stayed silent. William did not speak. Catherine remained quiet. Even Anne said nothing. Camilla finally asked Charles if he had known about all of this. Before Charles could answer, the legal advisor closed one folder and revealed another sealed document underneath. No one had mentioned it before. The name written on the front was Catherine's. Although Catherine's name appeared on the document, she had not written it herself. It was a memorandum prepared after a private meeting she attended with constitutional advisors who were planning for the next reign. So what do you think about Prince William and Catherine's shocking confirmation of Camilla's title stripping? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Don't forget to like and subscribe.